Okay, right. Let's start in the usual manner by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so today we continue on. This is the final section of the book chapter on Venerable Ānanda. And last week we read about the final days of the Buddha, how the Buddha foresaw that he was about to pass away. He gave the opportunity to Venerable Ānanda to, if there was a request for the Buddha to prolong his life, he could do so. So the Buddha kind of dropped hints at Venerable Ānanda, but 3 times Venerable Ānanda didn't pick up those hints. And by the time Venerable Ānanda realized, the Buddha said, I'm sorry, you had 3 chances, you didn't pick them up, so it's too late now. And then after that, we read about the journey, how the Buddha traveled to Kushinara and decided to pass away in between 2 sala trees, and how a lot of the not just devotees, but also the devas, heavenly realm beings, came to pay their respects, pay their homage to the Buddha. And before the Buddha passed away, he said, he saw that there was some heavenly realm beings coming to pay their respects. So he said to the monks, make a little bit of space for them. And there were offerings of, heavenly garlands of flowers and scents and all that. But the Buddha said that, yes, this is all very nice, but the best way to really pay homage, pay respect to the Buddha is by really practicing the teachings, really practicing what the Buddha taught us. That is the best way to remember, to pay homage to the Buddha. So that was his message. Yeah. And then we read also how, of course, Venerable Ānanda was much affected by the Buddha after his passing, but how Venerable Anuruddha played a role to console Venerable Ānanda. Okay? And we will read about Venerable Anuruddha's story in the next chapter. Okay? So today, after the Buddha's Parinibbāna, in verse, Ānanda expressed his situation after the master's passing. So this is from the Thera. My companion has passed away. The master too is gone. So he referred to the Buddha in 2 instances as a companion, because they spent a lot of time together. Whether traveling, whether rains retreat, staying in the same monastery, things like that. So the Buddha was very much his teacher, but was also very much his companion. So he said, the master too is gone. So my teacher, my master, my companion has passed away. There is no friendship now that equals this mindfulness directed to the body. So he's like, he's very much affected, because the Buddha to him was more than just a teacher, was also a close companion, was someone he could confide in, talk to. And so to Venerable Ānanda, there was no one else that could fill that space. Yeah. The old ones now have passed away. The new ones do not please me much. Today I meditate all alone, like a bird gone to its nest. And so we can feel very much the sorrow of Venerable Ānanda here, because the old ones now have passed away. As we remembered, Venerable Ānanda was somewhat close to Venerable Sariputta as well. Because Venerable Sariputta played a key role in teaching Venerable Ānanda as well. And so we know that Venerable Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana had passed away just a few months, I think, before the Buddha. And so I think this was kind of in reference to that from Venerable Ānanda's perspective. The old ones now have passed away. That means the old Theras, apart from the Buddha, the most senior disciples, the really most senior ones have passed away. The new ones, I guess he's referring to, again, here there's a little tiny at the end, I think. But I'm assuming he's referring to, we can check later, he's referring to the newer monks. Do not please me much, he's saying, not that, I guess he's like from a companionship perspective, from a learning perspective, because when Ānanda was very much like a very eager student. He was very diligent in his learning. So he said, today I meditate all alone, like a bird gone to its nest. And after the funeral ceremonies were over, Ānanda saw only one duty left for himself, namely to attain total liberation, as prophesied to him by the Buddha. So we can see how, Venerable Ānanda was very much devoted to the care, the support of the Buddha. And so he probably saw to it as his mission in life, and of course he made that aspiration, as we saw many, many, many aeons ago under the Buddha Padumuttara, to be the personal attendant of a Buddha. So we could think of it that he probably set his life mission to be very devoted, very, in terms of his time and everything, to the Buddha. And so now that Buddha's passed away, he's probably thinking, well, my life mission is now no longer. So what do I do now? So then the only thing left is to attain Nibbana and practice attain Nibbana. It's probably the only thing left for him to do, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So Kassapa, Mahakassapa, advised him to live in the forest in the province of Kosala. Kosala is from King Pasenadi's kingdom, which was near the Malas and the Sakyans. But when it became known that the Buddha's attendant was living in solitude in the forest nearby, he was inundated with visitors. Oh dear. So even though he wanted to go and practice in solitude in the forest, still people came to see him. Because he had a good character, He was popular. The lay disciples wanted to be consoled about the death of the Buddha and also about the death of Sariputta and Moggallana and of their just and beloved King Pasenadi. So King Pasenadi also had died. King Pasenadi of Kosala was a very strong devotee of the Buddha, and he had died. So they all passed away um, in terms of time span, very close. All four had died within the year. Day and night in the village and in the forest, Ananda had to console the lay disciples and was never alone. So, whoops, here we go. He's probably thinking, okay, now I'm going to devote my entire time, my entire life to the practice and cultivation so that I can attain Nibbana. I'm going to go to the forest. I'm going to practice in solitude. Yeah, not quite. People come and see him day and night. Thereupon, a deity who lived in the forest, concerned about Ananda's spiritual progress, appeared to him and advised him as follows. Having entered the thicket at the foot of a tree, having placed Nibbana in your heart, meditate, Gautama, and be not negligent. What will this hullabaloo do for you? Okay. I'm not quite sure why the name Gautama here is also used. Not sure if it's a family name. If anyone who's dialed in is familiar more with it.
Yeah,
Madam
you're
Nanda?
right, May. Yeah, Gautama is the family name, so that's why Ananda is related to the Gautama family name. That's why they were addressed as Gautama.
Okay, great,
You're
great. Thank
right.
you. Thanks for that. Yeah, so I think this deity was referring to Venerable Ānanda's family name. Yeah, because Venerable Ānanda was also cousin of the Buddha. So the deity kind of, in a way, kind of reminded Ānanda, hey, you said to yourself you're going to go to the forest to meditate to attain Nibbana. What are you doing? So, what's all this hula baloo? What's all this people coming to see you going to do for you? Exalted by the deity, Ānanda was stirred to a fresh sense of urgency. In the meantime, the Venerable Mahakassapa, remember Mahakassapa who arrived a little bit later, they couldn't burn the Buddha's funeral pyre until Venerable Mahakassapa came, circumambulated around the funeral pyre, and then all of a sudden, boom, it lighted up. So Venerable Mahakassapa had decided to call a council of monks to strengthen the Dhamma and the Vinaya. So this was going to be the First Buddhist Council. Because of unsafe conditions in the country of Kosala, the council was to take place in Rajgarh under the protection of King Ajatasattu. So now King Ajatasattu is reformed. So he's not the same person he's the same person, but he's no longer under the influence of Devadatta. So before he was under the influence of Devadatta, so he overthrew his father, King Bimbisara, put his father in the prison. And then after that, he realized, oh, okay, I was under a wrong influence of Devadatta, so now I've repented. So this is now King Ajatasattu who is repented, yeah, and a strong follower of the Buddha. So then Venerable Mahakassapa said, okay, let's, hold this First Buddhist Council at Rajagaha, present-day Rajgir. Okay. 500 monks were to participate, among whom Ānanda was the only one who was not an arahant. Ānanda knew most of the discourses of the Buddha and therefore was indispensable to the council. Of course, because his memory is second to none. And so if they're going to discuss about the Dhamma and the Vinaya, they cannot possibly leave out Venerable Ānanda. But there's this tiny little nagging thing. He's not an arahant. And Venerable Mahakassapa called for a council of arahats only. So when the date set for the council came closer, excuse me, the Venerable Anuruddha suggested that Ānanda should only be admitted if he could overcome the last cankers, the last hindrances, and attain arahantship. Anuruddha knew the power of such an incentive, and it had the intended effect. It's almost like sometimes, I'm about to sit for an exam next week, and I'm like, dilly-dally, procrastinate. Now I'm like, oh no, it's around the corner. And so I'm starting to like, okay, let's get serious. You know, not quite to the same level, but the intention is similar to kind of use that as an incentive. Anuruddha wasn't really trying to be harsh, in terms of not wanting Ānanda to attend. It was the opposite. Anuruddha actually wanted to use that as an incentive so that to kind of spur the, Venerable Ānanda to work harder or be more serious about his practice. That was the intention. So when Ānanda heard this stern stipulation, he decided to apply every bit of strength he had to realize Nibbana. He practiced the 4 foundations of mindfulness throughout the night, sitting and walking, sitting and walking, sitting and walking. In the early hours of the morning, as he was preparing to lie down after a full night of striving, just when he had raised his legs off the ground, but had not yet laid his head on the pillow, his mind was released from all cankers. That day, the council was to begin, and in the hope that he would succeed, a place had been reserved for him. And soon after, all the other monks were seated. Ānanda arrived through the air by psychic power and sat down in his seat. When Anuruddha and Kaspar saw this, they knew that he had reached his goal and expressed their brotherly joy with him. Then they declared the council open. Okay. Now, the story about Ānanda arriving through the air, it's the first time I heard about this through this book, not heard it elsewhere. And to be honest, I have no idea because I was not there. But in any case, what is uniform across a lot of readings, texts, etc., is that Ānanda did attain arahantship by the time the First Buddhist Council convened. During the council, Kassapa questioned the keeper of the discipline, Upali. So Upali was the one that knew the Vinaya inside out. He was like very well across the rules of the monks and the nuns. So I guess that's how he earned this keeper of the discipline. So Kaspar questioned Upali about each rule and each origin so that the Vinaya was laid down first. So Mahakassapa was very tactful in that sense. For him, it was like, okay, what's important first? Let's make sure we get the monks and nuns rules set out right first so that everybody knows their place. Everybody knows how to take care of each other. We set that down first, which was interesting, right? Because and it's a very practical approach. So if we think about, let's say, modern day, if you want to run a business or you want to run a company or you want to run a school, what do? Right? Very important to set up some structures, right? And you would probably go, okay, we're going to start with an organization chart, right? Which is the basic fundamentals. So who sits at the top? If it's a company, then the CEO sits at the top, and then there must be like a CFO or someone in charge of finance, someone in charge of marketing. And then once that's all set up, then roles, So what's that person responsible for? What's this person responsible for? What's this person responsible? Before you even start putting people into place. And then when you put people into place, then make sure that everybody knows what they're responsible for and what they need to do so that the whole company runs like a well-oiled machine, they call it. Yeah. So let's say we talk about a school, it's the same thing, similar. So we've got the head principal at the top, and then we've got some of the senior staff, let's say. We also have a disciplinarian teacher usually, right? Some homeroom teachers, and the students, and there's a head student and all these sort of things. So everybody has everybody, well, in a good school, everybody would know very clearly what their roles are, what's their responsibilities, what they're meant to do, etc. So Mahakassapa was very practical, and we know from our readings of him that he had a very strict, disciplined way of life, no nonsense, no compromise. But also he was very much into, we need to have certain things in order. So this is a very practical way of starting. First, make sure the Vinaya is set down right, okay? Then only we talk about the Dhamma, okay? Not the other way around, which was interesting. So the next item on the agenda was the doctrine, the Dhamma. So Mahakassapa asked Ānanda first about the longest discourses, which became the Digha Nikaya, then about the middle length ones, the Majjhima Nikaya, and then about the other collections that we all read from. Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, Khuddaka Nikaya, and so on and so forth. And after the recitation of the Dhamma and the Vinaya, Ānanda mentioned those matters that the Buddha had left as a legacy with him to settle. He told the assembly that the master had allowed the minor and lesser rules to be abolished. So this is quite consistently across the texts that this was said, and also it has become somewhat of a matter of discussion and sometimes dispute and debate at times. What is minor and lesser rules? So because the Buddha was not specific about what the minor and lesser rules are. And so in some schools, they, agree that, okay, these are the minor and lesser rules and we can leave them out and, things like that, okay? But thereupon, so here the senior monks so these are amongst the 500 arahants that were in attendance in the First Buddhist Council, the senior ones, they could not agree what was meant by the minor and lesser rules. So thereupon, Kassapa spoke up. If now, during the First Buddhist Council, so this was not too long after the Buddha's passing, so I say, if now the Sangha starts abolishing rules, lay people will say that so soon after the passing of the Blessed One, we have become lax. Since it is not known which rules were meant, it would be best not to abolish any of them. And in that case, we shall be sure that we are not acting contrary to the master's wishes. And so it was done. So from the First Buddhist Council, the Vinaya was kept as it is. Okay. And it was only later on that it was kind of discussed, and then after that, I'm not an expert in Buddhist history, but we then had the different schools of Buddhism start to, in India, after the second Buddhist Council or third Buddhist Council, I'm not sure. But then at that point, when the different schools, they started to split up and all that, then some of the schools said, okay, these are minor rules, so we will do without, and da 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 and da 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 and so on. But in the First Buddhist Council, it was agreed no rules would be abolished. So the elder monks present said it had been a breach of discipline for Ānanda not to ask what was meant by the minor rules, and he should confess this as a wrongdoing. Okay, very harsh. Second, he was accused of having sewn a robe for the Blessed One after having stepped on the cloth. So it's probably one of the Vinayas, I'm assuming. And he replied that nothing had been further from his mind than disrespect for the Blessed One. Of course, it's Venerable Ānanda. He probably just accidentally stepped on the cloth, you know. Nevertheless, if the Venerable Ones considered it a wrongdoing, he would acknowledge it as such. Third, he was criticized for allowing the women to salute the remains of the Blessed One first. He replied that at the time of the funeral, he had thought this would enable the women to return home before dark, and therefore he had allowed them to pay their homage first. But here too, he would accept the verdict of his elders. The fourth accusation that the monks leveled at Ānanda referred to his failure to beg the Blessed One to remain for an aeon. So yes, this fourth accusation was mentioned in several texts, in several areas, that Ānanda was chastised because he did not ask the Buddha to remain. Yeah. Ānanda defended himself by saying he had been possessed by Mara at the time and therefore was not responsible for his actions. How could he have otherwise failed to make this request? So Ānanda's behavior in the face of these accusations was exemplary. He submitted to the judgment of the other elders, although he himself could not see any wrongdoing, a fact that he did not fail to mention. So subsequently, Ānanda reported the second instruction. So we remembered the Buddha gave him two instructions, minor and lesser rules, and highest penalty to monk Channa. So Ānanda reported that the Buddha had given immediately before his death, namely imposing the higher penalty on the monk Channa. And the assembly requested Ānanda himself to present this decision to Channa. Ānanda objected that Channa was a violent and unruly person. So then the assembly of monks and elders advised him to take a number of monks along. Leading a large group, he journeyed to Kosambi, where Channa was living, and he informed him of the last will of the Buddha, that he had been declared dead in the order. So what does that mean, declared dead in the order? It means that you're basically cut off, shunned by other Sangha members. So this is actually one of the highest penalty in the Sangha to be given to any monk or nun, that, you know, you are completely cut off, not supported, not guided. No teacher will guide you. So that's what they meant, declared dead in the order. It's really very harsh, because a monk or a nun can only really survive and practice by being supported in the Sangha. So this is a very highest penalty. Yeah. And this penalty had been explained by the Buddha to the horse trainer, Kessi, horse trainer. He would use it against monks who could not be persuaded to reform their behavior, either through admonition or discipline. So the Buddha probably saw that Channa was very unruly, very violent, no matter how anyone tried to speak to him, teach him, admonish him, discipline, Channa would not listen. That's why Buddha gave this order, like, this monk hopeless. Yeah. Whoever could not be trained in this way would be considered as dead in the order. He would not be spoken to, whatever he did. And when Channa heard this, he became so horrified that he fainted. And when he regained his senses, he was deeply ashamed that the master had proclaimed this penalty against him as his last instruction to the order. It's true, because of all things that the Buddha would leave as his, final instructions, it was this, right? Imagine if you are Channa, right? And of all things that the Buddha gave as last instructions to Ānanda, one of them was cut you off. That's terrible. Of all things that the Buddha would say, right? And so when Channa regained his senses, he was deeply ashamed. And that gave him the impetus to put forth in his most strenuous effort. And within a short time, he became an arahant. And so this penalty showed itself to be the Buddha's last act of compassion for the benefit and happiness of the monk Channa, being effective even after the Buddha's death. So obviously the Buddha saw this, and the Buddha's compassion for Channa saw that this last instruction will help Channa become an arahant. And when Channa had become a holy one, he went to Ānanda and begged him for a repeal of the penalty. Ānanda replied that as soon as he had attained release from the cankers, the penalty had ceased to be operative. After the Parinibbāna of the Buddha, the Venerable Mahākassapa, as the most respected disciple, had taken over the guidance of the order. His status, however, was not that of a refuge as the Buddha had been, nor was it that of a patriarch. So it was very clear, that he wasn't going to be like take over the Buddha's place. He was simply the most authoritative, the most senior, and the most highly revered of the monks, and thus functioned, so to say, as the symbol for the observance of the Dhamma and the discipline. Everyone turned to him for his decisions on all questions regarding the order, and in this way he became the chief elder of the Sangha. So in terms of most senior monk, let's say, but not like, a patriarch, or not like, replacing the Buddha, not like that, okay? After him, Ānanda became the second leading elder, the second most venerated holy one, who was designated to look after the order. And after he had already been a monk for over 40 years, he survived the Buddha by another 40 years. And after he having been the personal attendant of the Buddha for 25 years, he became the foremost of the arahats for a similar length of time. At the time of the Second Council, 100 years after the Buddha's Parinibbāna, a personal disciple of Ānanda's was still alive. He was a very old monk named Sabbakami, who it was said had been in the order for 120 years. Gosh, must have lived very, very long. So a disciple of Ānanda himself was at the Second Buddhist Council, 100 years after the Buddha's Parinibbāna. So we can see that at least there was some continuity, at least up till the Second Buddhist Council from the time of the Buddha. When Ānanda was 120 years old, he felt that his end was near. He went from Rajagaha on a journey to Vesali, just as his master had done. And when the king of Magadha and the princes of Vesali heard that Ānanda would soon attain final Nibbana, they hurried to him from both directions to bid him farewell. And in order to do justice to both sides, Ānanda chose a way to die in keeping with his gentle nature. He raised himself into the air through his supernormal powers and let his body be consumed by the fire element. The relics were divided and stupas erected. And after his passing, the elders who compiled the subsequent recension of the canon added 3 verses to his collection in the Thera. Of great learning, bearer of the Dhamma, the guardian of the great seer's treasure, Ānanda, the eye of the entire world, has attained final Nibbana. Of great learning, bearer of the Dhamma, guardian of the great seer's treasure, Ānanda, the eye of the entire world, was a dispeller of gloom in the darkness. The seer who was so retentive, of keen memory and resolute, the elder sustaining the true Dhamma, Ānanda was a mine of gems. So they added this to the Thera in praise of Venerable Ānanda. Okay, so that was a chapter on finishing reading of Venerable Ānanda's life and story, and then next time we read the book, we will continue with Anuruddha, Venerable Anuruddha, master of the divine eye, who was Venerable Ānanda's half-brother. Okay, so but of very different character. Although they were half-brothers, they were very different character. So which means Venerable Anuruddha was also a cousin of the Buddha. Okay, so that will be next. So I thought before we finish off today, just to have a quick go through of I mean, just briefly skim through what we had already covered. We had already covered quite a bit with this book, this really brilliant book. We read about Sariputta, the marshal of the Dhamma, the role he played, the person that he was, the character that he was, how important his role was, not only as one of the foremost disciple of the Buddha, but also in terms of the training of the monks as well. And then we read through Mahamoggallana, who was the other foremost disciple of the Buddha, and how Sariputta and Mahamoggallana shared a very close connected life in their final life journey, but also in previous lives. And where Sariputta was foremost in terms of wisdom, second only to the Buddha, Mahamoggallana was foremost in psychic ability, again, second only to the Buddha. And so we read about Mahamoggallana's ability and also his role. He and Sariputta played very important roles in the training and education of the monks. Then we read Mahakassapa, who he was. Yes, his connection with Bhatta Kapilani, how he came to the Buddha, and his character, Mahakassapa, as a practitioner until, you know, his later days. Yeah. And he was still alive after the Buddha passed away. And then more recently, we read about Ānanda, the guardian of the Dhamma. So we've covered these 4 senior disciples so far. So next time we read, we will continue with Anuruddha, Okay. And then we will continue with Mahakachana, Master of Doctrinal Exposition. So quite often we read in the text sometimes. The Buddha says something to the monks and gives them a hint. And then the monks did not catch the hint. And then the Buddha goes, okay, no questions. I will go to my quarters and rest. And then the monks talk among themselves and they go, ooh, we should have asked the Buddha what he really meant. But the Buddha's not here. He's gone to his quarters now. So who should we ask? We shall go and ask Mahakachana, because he's master in doctrinal exposition, right? So yes. Okay. Then after that, the book touches on some of the great women disciples of the Buddha, some of whom we did read a little bit on them from the Therigathas and also from the, I think this, was it the Samyutta Nikaya? Yes, from the Bhikkhuni Samyutta chapters. So we read some of that there, but we can still read through some of these again, very short readings of the great women disciples here. Some of them we've not read, like Queen Malika, we've not read. Queen Samavati, we've not read. Sirima Uttara, I don't think so. Isidasi, I don't think so. Ambapali, I cannot remember if we did touch on. Vishaka, I think we did. But yes, it'd be nice to touch upon them again. And then Angulimala, the famous Angulimala, who was this murderer. And I think, Brother Sachinji, you once read Angulimala Sutta, I think.
Yes, I remember reading it.
Yes, yes, yes. So we will come to that again after we read the famous Buddhist women.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then of course Anathapindika, who is the Buddha's chief patron, chief lay disciple, very, very wealthy man. And then the shorter lives of the disciples, some of the shorter stories here. And then, yeah, that is pretty much the content. So it feels like we've been reading a lot, but actually we've only just covered 4 senior disciples. So there's still quite a bit more. Not much more. I think the large majority, major parts of this work we've covered so far.
It's very excellent. Excellent.
I hope it's useful. I don't know. I hope it's useful. I do have some feedback occasionally that it's useful.
Yeah.
One thing is that definitely someone may have inspired it. Like we don't know whether since we publish in internet, someone may watch it. Otherwise, someone may have the trigger of the chapter itself, and that would have triggered in their mind. Like when you read completely, like you are reading continuously, definitely it will trigger in our mind to be very good towards Dhamma. I think Nanda Madam wants to share something. Nanda Madam, yes.
Yeah, May, thank you very much for the reading. It's very, very interesting. I do continue, and whenever I'm free, I am delighted to join. We are going to have a second retreat in November for 2 weeks. So there will be at least 2 or 3 weeks gap. But apart from attending retreats, we are looking forward to your reading. They are very interesting and very useful and very motivational. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent, Nanda Madam. You are attending second retreat. Whether the teacher is same, Venerable Obasa?
Yes, it would be hosted by Venerable Ānanda.
Excellent. Excellent.
I think Paul G and Pai may know. I think it's really quintessential English countryside. Shropshire. I understand, I haven't been there, but I understand it's a very nice place. Yes, we all are
Excellent.
looking forward to
Excellent.
that
You're doing very
very
good thing.
much.
Good, good. Yeah, I hope you enjoy your retreat. And of course, good practice, good sittings, good good walkings, etc. Good food also, I hope, and hopefully some exercise as well. Bhante Vimalaramsa used to remind us though, if we have to sit long hours, let's say, if the sitting goes well and it goes into long hours, we must remember to really walk, not just walk, he said, those of you who probably remember, he said to walk fast to get the blood circulating well.
Yes,
Is
climb
what he
stairs used to say.
used to say that, right?
Climb
Yeah.
stairs, yes.
Yes, yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. And now I understand actually what he meant. It's so important. The circulation of the blood, etc. It's just so important. So yeah, well, enjoy your retreat. I hope it will go well. I'm sure it'll go well. And I hope you have good food and good support as well. That's also important. So okay, I think we shall end here. Let me see if I can. Wait, I'll come. One moment. Yeah, okay. I think this will work. Let me know. Can you see the sharing merit screen?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we can.
Yes, yes,
Thank
we
you,
can
May.
see.
It's just a bit, this laptop's a bit weird. Okay, never mind. All right. So let us share the merits together. May suffering
And
ones
suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief.
May
May
all
all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May all be happy and peaceful. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes, so
Yes.
important. Thank you so much. I wish you
Thank
all a
you.
good week ahead. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.